If you look at the image here on the right, where if it's probably been a while since some of you have played that game, but ultimately this is something that is just a great analogy that I know for who's at the Sidekick team at HubSpot, and he essentially talks about every test that you run is like a ping in the game of Battleship, and even if that test doesn't drive a result, you learn something. And so it's just like over time, like in the game of Battleship, the white ones are the misses and the red ones are the hits, but over time you start to see where the opportunities are. And so you test to discover, but you also test to optimize, and the testing to optimize is about the realization that everything you're doing, there's a better way that you can be doing it, and you just have to keep running additional tests. So that whether that's ad copy, running additional tests to optimize, whether that's images in your ads, or on a higher level, that can be the discovering, trying a new channel, trying PPC, trying testing that might be a landing page type test, or as you kind of see this here at the bottom, that rapid testing across all vectors of growth. So a lot of what we'll focus on today will be the acquisition testing, but ultimately improving your activation rate, so improving the landing page that people are hitting. It's nearly impossible to be competitive today with PPC if you are not actively testing your landing pages and making sure that you've got the best landing page there. And at the same time, why stop at the landing page? If you can get better at retaining customers and bringing back customers, it's going to improve your ability on how much you can afford to pay to get them in the first place and be more competitive in channels. If you can get customers to refer other customers, that improves your ability to acquire revenue tests, so different pricing tests. A lot of what we've done on our Qualaroo product have been pricing tests, and so we've increased the prices, we've added features over time, but a lot of our growth has come from there. Resurrection, so people who used to be your customers, bringing those customers back. So essentially running tests across each of these vectors can be really important in improving your overall growth rate. So what you hold on here. There was not advancing for me. But so ultimately, when you start to run lots of tests, if you want to learn from that testing, you need to make sure that you're capturing the information around those tests. So what was the key lesson learned from each test? And you want to make sure that you know all the details around that test, so the before and after screenshots of what you tested, and you want to make sure that that information is available to the whole team, so that it's not just you in the marketing group that's learning, but really everyone across the whole team. And so part of that process of testing then becomes building a lot of ideas, and so that's what we're going to be doing with Larry today. Is going to be sharing some ideas of things that you can test, but ultimately you want to be generating a lot of ideas. You want to have a good system for prioritizing which tests you're going to run, and you want to, and then you ultimately want to launch those tests, analyze the results, capture that learning, and drive that to do more testing. And so to be really effective with it, the best companies are formalizing every test idea that they're doing in an experiment doc, and so that they're capturing a hypothesis around that experiment doc. Where in the funnel is it? Is it an acquisition test? If it's an acquisition test, then a lot of times you want to talk about which channel it is within that. So what you see over here is tagging, like Twitter. Twitter can also be used for referral, or can be used for retention. So Twitter doesn't necessarily mean it's only an acquisition test. And then you want to score each test so that you can prioritize your tests. You want to score them on things like impact, confidence, and ease. That's what we use on the Growth Hackers team. And so that impact being, if this works, how impactful will it potentially be? Is this something that could be a game changer, or is it a relatively incremental test? So the ones that Larry will take us through today are all pretty high impact tests. So they would score high on the impact level. Confidence, do I have a lot of evidence that this is going to work? Have I run some surveys where I've got feedback from users that they're having a problem, or that they actually discover my type of product in this channel? Anything that kind of gives you a little bit more confidence that it might work. And then finally, is it easy to run this test? And so as you run those scores, then it becomes easier to actually compare ideas, so that you can decide which ones you want to run week to week. So we actually run our testing at Growth Hackers in weekly sprints. It's the same way that Facebook does it, the same way that LinkedIn and Uber and a lot of the fastest growing companies are essentially reprioritizing their testing schedule every week based on the new learning that they get. And once you've tagged up all of your tests and ideas in an experiment doc, it becomes easier to sort things by, okay, what are the easiest tests to run? So this, for example, is sorted by easiest tests to run. But maybe I want to really shoot for super high impact tests, and maybe I want to score on that, or I want to take an average of the highest impact, confidence, and ease scores. So the more that you have organized the information around your testing ideas, the more systematic and scientific you can be about deciding which tests to run. And then ultimately it all comes down to building a big backlog of ideas. And so a lot of those internal ideas deeper in the funnel, you should be sourcing from your full team. So you should be getting feedback from your support team about where people are having challenges when they're signing up for your product, or what some ideas that you could do to get people to keep using your product longer. So that's a lot of the internal, but external, a lot of times what you need to do is rely on experts who really understand some of those external channels. So you might not have someone in your team that understands how Pinterest works and how you can use Pinterest to drive traffic or drive users into your product, or how Google necessarily works to maximize. And there's experts in each of these channels that understand the channels on a really deep systems level, where they understand the opportunities and can work with you to ultimately help you as a business tap into those opportunities. And that's why I'm really excited to be working with Larry today, because as far as PPC experts go, Larry's about as good as they get. So from whether it's Google AdWords and understanding how Google AdWords works, or Facebook, or how you can blend data together across multiple channels to really maximize your success, Larry's great at that. And so that's what I'm excited to now have Larry take us through some of these experiments, and just recognize that they're not going to be silver bullets. They may not work for you. Every single thing may not work for you, but ultimately the more things you test, the more you're going to discover some things that are going to work really well for your business. And so it becomes really important to connect with those experts, learn from those experts, get ideas of things to test, and ultimately then to run the tests. So my recommendation is start with a target of maybe 3 tests per week or 2 tests per week. But if you hit that target week after week, your learning is going to accumulate over time, and you will be able to accelerate your growth significantly. So I'll hand it back to you, Larry, and you can take it from there.
Hey, thanks, Sean. That's great. Going to be taking it to more specific tests now. So talking about a couple of interesting tests that I've had an opportunity to run over the last few weeks and months, and hopefully it'll give you some inspiration to try these out on your own campaigns. And Sean, of course, I'd be interested in your thoughts on these various tests in terms of their ICE scores and anything else you'd like to add. So the first, just confirming, can you see my screen here? My first experiment has to do with call-only campaigns. So the idea is very simple. More and more people are, actually people spend more time on their phones than they do on their desktops, and that's kind of becoming the primary way, or it is the primary way that people are accessing their the internet. And so what if, instead of just driving people to click on a link to a website from our ads, what if we just force them to call us, call a business using these new technologies? And so the test was to try out, there's 2 ways of testing this. The first one is called a call-only campaign. And so that's a type of campaign in AdWords where it'll only show up if there's no other option other than calling to the business, and you get called on a pay-per-call basis. And the other way that you can do this is it has to do with you can make it in a regular campaign, like in a campaign. You can make clicks on the headline link. You can have it pop up a calling button rather than navigating to the website. And we wanted to see, how big of an impact that would have on kind of like the value of pay-per-click advertising to various businesses. And so, and not only wanted to see we wanted to track this through the whole funnel in terms of how does it impact the call volume, how does it impact the sales, and order values and conversion rates, etc. And so basically the way that we set up this test, Sean, was very low tech. I tried it out on a handful of customers, but one of them was a warehouse for automotive parts. Okay, so they were selling for various makes and models, replacement parts. It was like an industrial warehouse, and they would get orders through the phone, and so it was a very low tech solution. We didn't even have like a software system in place. It was just like there was this woman who would answer the phone, okay, and they would kind of keep track of kind of where, what were the outcomes of calls over like a 3-week period. So they had, just think of like a warehouse. You have like line 1, line 2, line 3. So what we did is we just had the regular phone numbers would call in, and then we had the test group being sent to line 2, so it would go straight to line 2. So she could tell where the call was coming. Was it from this call only campaign, or was it from the or was it from just the regular people dialing your phone number, etc. So essentially the reason why this matters is because we're not just looking at we didn't want to just look at like the clicks, the volume of clicks. We wanted to see the outcomes. And so what she did was she would just write down, okay, this person bought like these replacement carburetors or whatever, and the value of the order was such and such. And so she would just write down the outcomes of the calls for 3 weeks and manually. And then we just went over the spreadsheet and kind of matched up the numbers. And what we found was, lo and behold, these calls to businesses were actually worth a lot more, 3 times more in terms of their value than just driving clicks to your website. And of course, that makes a ton of sense for 2 reasons. One of them is that you're not, usually when you send traffic to a website, you lose a lot of them, like most of them, 97% of them won't take the action that you're hoping for them to do, and even if they do fill out those forms, you lose immediacy. So like they're not on the phone right away, so they may or may not be able to get back in touch with you, like when you call them back, and maybe they'll have like the urgency has passed, and so like the likelihood of closing an order, that's maybe that's not as urgent. So definitely worth trying out here. We did this with a couple companies. One was a lawyer who was trying to get like in-office consultations, like to set up an appointment to speak to an immigration lawyer if you're being deported or something like that. And sure enough, the call-only campaigns, similarly drove not just like 3 or 4 or 5% more value, but actually multiple, like 2, 3, 4 times more value for those clicks or those calls.
So Larry, a quick question for you. I was a little bit unclear on how did they differentiate between calls that were coming in through the ads versus calls that would have come in anyway?
Sure. So they specifically set up the call-only campaigns to ring line 2. Like they've got different inbound lines. And,
so they do have different phone numbers then.
Right. And so if the number 2 is blinking, then she knows, oh well, this is coming in from the Google phone.
Perfect. Okay. Cool.
So that was just wanted to stress kind of like this idea. So on search, it's roughly 50-50. So on search, half of the searches are on desktop and half of them on mobile. But on mobile, or sorry, on social, it's more lopsided. It's 1-to-1 on search between desktop and mobile. In social, it's more like 4 or 5-to-1. Like 80% of
Wow.
this usage is on mobile, and only a very more minority of it is on desktop these days. Like I don't even use Twitter on desktop because it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so 80% of the Twitter users are mobile, and so I thought, if this works so well on on Google search, which is roughly 50-50, one-to-one desktop to mobile, like could it work even better on social? And of course, I don't. I just wanted to share that Facebook has similar ad formats that you can test. So they've got these call now buttons as well, where you can call directly to a business, and also like Twitter and Facebook have these lead generation formats. So that's where you, rather than having someone go to a landing page where they have to fill out a form and you lose most of them, you can just see that thing where it says click here, and that'll send the username, email, password, like username, first name, last name, and an email to the advertiser with one click. And it's also known as a social direct response ad format, lead generation ad formats in Facebook, where it's like you just tap it twice and you're done, as opposed to filling out some kind of complicated form.
I
And
love it.
so
I mean, what's interesting with all of this and the previous one is that I was talking about testing every step within the funnel. What's great with this is that it's really skipping most of the steps in the funnel and going straight, of course, going straight to the bottom of the funnel to actually drive the sale.
yeah, it's kind of like converting, pay-per-click marketing into more like pay-per-lead marketing, because there's no step where you lose people. So that, I think there's a lot of leverage in this, like not just like 2 or 3% change. It's more like 2 or 3 times improvements typically. And whenever I see, there's, I think Sean was talking about the impact of your tests. Whenever I see, tests that have, double or triple like impact, then I get excited about those. If it's like 2 or 3%, you never know if that's noise or really like lasting, value. But when you have such a huge change like that, that's something worth spending the time to test. Anything to add about this particular test, Sean?
No, I definitely agree with you. The bigger the swings you take, and those are the really high impact scores. You're going to your hit rate might be a little bit lower, but if you hit it, it can make a huge difference in the business.
So moving along, I wanted to go to my number 2 crazy experiment here, which has to do with using something called Customer Match, which is a brand new feature in AdWords. It's a very, very powerful feature. We'll talk about this, but basically the idea was like, what if instead of showing PPC ads to like anybody who was searching for the keywords that we were interested in, what if I made it so that those PPC ads showed up for very specific people, like maybe people who were already in my lead database as prospects or customers. So basically, I don't want to just show the ads to anyone in the world, but rather the people who've engaged or are familiar with WordStream in some way in the recent history. And so this is actually a very interesting evolution of ad targeting. So like, back in the day when I was getting started in internet marketing, it was ridiculous. You would target ads on like websites and stuff like this. Then search advertising came along. That was kind of interesting, but same with remarketing recently. Remarketing and search advertising are definitely very interesting, but in both of those, you don't really know who you're targeting, right? It's just somebody who visited your website or somebody who searched on a keyword. And so what identity-based marketing using customer match and custom audiences in Facebook, it lets you deliver specific ad creative and messages to specific people where you're certain of the identity. Like it's not just some random person. It's Johnny or Sally or something like this. So you can target them using emails and phone numbers. And so I had 2 crazy tests. So you can start to see how this could be quite a game changer here. I had 2 crazy tests. First, I wanted to test what's the match rate like? So the match rate is like, so just say you had 100 emails of customers, like how many realistically could Google and Facebook and Twitter match up to actual logged in users on Google and Facebook and Twitter? So just to get a sense for like, how many of those users are actually using the same emails as logins in their platforms. And so the second idea was to yeah, and comparing the different match rates. The second idea was to run actual campaigns using the various custom customer match technologies to see how that differs from targeting search ads to just like generic people who are searching for stuff who may or may not have heard of you in the past. So let's run through experiment number one. So basically what I did was I went to my salesforce.com and I downloaded all the emails in the last like year, and there was like 357,000 people who had signed up for like white paper and webinars like you guys. So there was a lot of people who were in my database, and I uploaded all 357,000 into to Google. And don't worry, in terms of privacy, like you're not actually uploading the actual emails, but rather what it does is it encrypts the emails and does something called a hash on those emails, and then only the encrypted hash values are then sent to Google, and then Google tries to figure out like is this a login for like YouTube or for Gmail or for Google Plus? Like can we find the same email in our records? And so I was really surprised to see that like after uploading it and processing it, I got a match on 180,000 of those 356,000 emails that were in my database. And so that was a very fantastic high match rate of roughly 50.4%. And I did the same thing on Twitter and Facebook. And on Facebook, I uploaded the same email list. Like you can target individual emails on Facebook as well as on Twitter. And so, it's 48.99%, so we'll call that a tie. I thought that was very impressive because I would have thought Facebook would have been higher than Google, but apparently I guess so many people use Gmail and YouTube and Google Plus and just that they're able to match. Or Google Analytics, like you're probably logged into Google, so with one of your emails, so they're able to match quite a bit of them. Twitter, on the other hand, they were, basically the conclusion I came up with here was like Twitter's in trouble. Like they, even if you have like 1,000 emails, they're only going to be able to match on 100 of them, and that was pretty disappointing. And so that was my first experiment, was just to see where should I be focusing my time on in terms of using this new technology. So now that I know it's like Facebook and Google.
One quick question for you. It seems like this would probably be different if you had a consumer product, don't you think? That it would probably be more skewed toward Facebook, but considering that most of your emails are going to be business potential customers, there's a good chance they're using like the Google for hosting their email, for example, and so it might have more heavily weighted toward Google in that case.
So it's definitely not like, I can't argue against like trying out your own data, but like the process of figuring out what platforms am I going to get the best match for my customers, like that's what you should be repeating. As for my specific data, like I would expect marketers, like so my list is made up of internet marketers around the world. I would have expected to see a much higher rate on Twitter and Facebook, because they're like into social media and all this stuff, so
okay, yeah.
I get what you're saying, but like I think these marketers, it's not like they only use Google, they also are all over Twitter and Facebook. So that's why I was comfortable publishing the results, because like I thought that it would be a kind of a equal interest, like they would all be enthusiastically interested in all three, and so I could just see which was the most enthusiastically interested in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. Just try it out and see for yourself. It's not that hard a test. You just need to download your emails and upload them to the various platforms.
And it doesn't cost any money to figure out where how much match you have. It's only costs money to start targeting ads at those people, right?
Right. So this is a great place.
A painless test.
So you would call that, and effort scale on your ICE scale, it would be, very low. It's like 5 minutes, right? Yeah. So there you have it. So now it was basically what I learned here was like, okay, forget Twitter for now. Let's focus on the winners here, Google and Facebook, and see what can I do with these emails in terms of trying to match ads to these specific people who I care about. And so basically, here's an example campaign that I've run. I've run hundreds of these campaigns, but this is like very, very typical of what you will see. And it's a little hard to understand, but like just focus your attention on that green square. Okay, so ignore the first campaign, like just the green highlighted. There's 3 campaigns. This is an AdWords campaign. So in this example, I'm targeting the exact same keywords. Okay. The same keywords to 3 different audiences, okay? The first audience, the one that's completely blurred out, that's just like anybody who is searching for those keywords, okay? The second audience is called RLSA. There I'm targeting people who've visited my website recently, like in the last 30 days. Like, so I'm targeting those, so 2 things has to happen. 1, they have to search on a keyword that I'm interested, and 2, they have to have visited my website in the last 30 days. So that's RLSA. It's called Remarketing Lists for Search Ads. The third one is a campaign where I'm targeting people specifically in that list of emails that I've uploaded. So that's like the people who have not only visited my site but also taken an additional step of qualification by coughing up their email and contact information in order to sign up for a webinar or get some kind of sign up for a newsletter or a demo, etc. So what I can tell you here is that so the click-through rates of RLSA, so people remarketing, like people who have recently visited my site, was 6 times higher than the click-through rate of people who haven't visited my website. Okay, so that's a big difference. And then the click-through rate of people who are on my email list was lower, so 6% versus 11.82%. Now, so that makes a lot of sense to me because RLSA has this notion of recency, right? Sean, if you visited my site yesterday or like last week, then you're more likely to want to click on something on my ads than if I collected your email, say 7 or 8 months ago. Remember, I went back a whole year.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the click-through rate for RLSA was a lot higher, but I tracked this all the way through to order value. Okay, so like not only like what's the click-through rate and the cost per click, but what's the value? So this was an e-commerce company. Like what was the value in terms of the multiple? Like how much lift or the value divided by the cost of the ads, and the generically targeted things I was making 3.7 times my money. Okay, makes sense. The remarketing people was almost double that, 6 times my money, because they've visited my site, so that means they're familiar with my brand. But like the RLSA, the email-based targeting, I was getting over twice the value, so 8.41 times the cost of what I was spending for those emails, and that is of course because, as you know, most marketers know that your best source of business is your existing customers or your existing prospects, because they were the furthest along in terms of their purchase journey. And so this was just a very interesting way to quantify, like, what would be the impact of targeting customers or existing prospects rather than random people. So I'm not suggesting that you abandon targeting generically targeted search ads. What I am saying is that if budget is a concern, like if you only had, I don't know, $500 a month to spend on ads, well then I would target kind of the low-hanging fruit first. You see what I'm saying? But yeah. you can't run you have to have both offense and defense. You can't only be going after the people who know you. You have to also be growing the number of people who of your list, but
Yeah,
clearly,
I was gonna actually say that the challenge on that last one is that it's not particularly scalable. It doesn't look like with only 59 clicks, even though it's got the best return on investment. But like you're saying, if you have a limited budget, that's a great place to concentrate that budget.
yeah, right. That is, if you only have $100 a day to spend, that's where you would spend it. So
Yeah.
and
So
go ahead.
yeah, and then another question for you, like how are you doing attribution with something like this, particularly on the remarketing? If you've already paid to acquire them once, is that being factored in on some of this return on investment on the reaching them again through the remarketing or the email remarketing?
So, Sean, the most of it is free. So, like, Wordstream does about 1.5 million visitors a month, and we pay for a very, very small amount of them, right?
Okay, so that's if it had been organic traffic, then you wouldn't necessarily have paid for them the first time.
Like, just because we happen to have this crazy blog, like, they're very small. Like, we're talking like 3-4% of the traffic to the site is
Yeah.
paid. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it would be negligible. But
Okay.
but Sean, the key thing here is that, like, I just wanted to kind of give you the takeaway, and this is confirmed by not just this one test, but like as a rule of thumb across multiple tests that I've run regarding the use of customer match, is that it will, in general, it'll triple your click-through rates, okay? And it'll double your order values. And so again, when I start to see like those, orders of magnitude or like 2x, 3x, types of things, then I get excited because that means it's not just noise. It means that there's something here, and of course it makes a lot of sense. And so, the suggestion here is like, how like there's different offers where it's like, sign up for a white paper, or, that's kind of a very low effort kind of offer versus like sign up for a test drive or a demo. Like that's, now you have to spend time on this thing.
Very considered.
So what I'm suggesting is use the power of list remarketing, because it has this really magical effect on order value and click-through rates. Why not use it to push to the harder offers, the ones with the stubbornly low click-through rates, the ones with the stubbornly low conversion rates, because this could make a kind of a more difficult offer more economically viable. So that's my idea there. It's kind of like I call it like an instant unicorn manufacturing device. Unicorns are just generically, I view that as like a special, remarkable ad, and so you can take these difficult ads and make them special by using the power of customer match and custom audiences on Google and Facebook.
Cool. Love it.
So that's me doing my happy dance because I'm so excited that this worked. Moving along here, we only have about 14 minutes left, so I'm going to talk about my third experiment, which is using emojis in ad text. This is kind of a silly example. Like, sometimes you do these serious examples, and sometimes you got to just try out crazy ideas.
Absolutely.
And so my crazy idea was like just realizing that emojis are really, really changing the way that we communicate online. If you look at my Twitter or my Facebook feeds, what you'll see is that I rarely use words anymore. I'll just use emojis, and here's like and it resonates more with the people that I talk to, right? It's like, this is just a silly example, or I give someone a fist bump, and he was really excited that I said that. Whereas if I, just use words, I don't think he would have been that excited. And so, the other thing that I notice is that there's like so many cool emojis. Like there's even like a unicorn emoji, a burrito emoji, like so many different characters that would allow me to connect with people on an emotional way or in a fun way that it kind of makes me more memorable or more loved. And so the idea was just like, what if we try using these characters in AdWords? Now, the thing about this is I just need to have a disclaimer here. Like AdWords actually, this is like a loophole. Like you're not supposed to do this, okay? And so they usually, 50% of the time they will shut down those ads. But we found that 20% of the time they actually run.
You can slip them through there.
like their filters aren't very good. And so the idea was what would be the impact of using emojis in pay-per-click advertisements? So for example, here let me give you an example. So Scented Donut Eraser. This is an actual company that we sell products for. They sell a lot of things, among other things, scented donuts. And I was like, why don't we just put the donut emoji in the title and and figure out does that change things? And any guesses, Sean?
I mean that would probably make it jump out. I'm interested for sure.
Because right, it's you got all these search listings that are all boring, and they're all saying the same thing, right? And then they've got this one that has this donut. So, the hypothesis was, well, it'll make the ad stick out. It'll increase the click-through rate. That'll increase the quality score, which means higher quality score means lower cost per click, higher impression share, and all that good stuff, like a little flywheel of goodness here. Virtuous cycle. And here's that example. It's a slightly different example here. It's animal erasers. I think that's a panda and a penguin there. So the first ad is the non-emoji one. That was crappy. It was 0.38% click-through rate. That's terrible.
Wow.
When I add the emoji, it almost more than triples. Remember, guys, I'm really excited about big changes, 2, 3, 4 times, not just 2, 3, 4%. So now the second one with the emojis, it's 1.26%. Now that's not a great click-through rate, but it's 3 times better than before. And look what it does to the average cost per click, Sean. It reduces it by about 25%. Okay, because higher click-through rates give you lower cost per click. And look at what it does to the ad position, right? Because Google wants to show the ads that are most likely to click on. So these are, we have the same bid on these two ads, but the emoji one got shown, in a much higher average spot. So it's win-win-win. It's higher spot, lower cost, and higher click-through rate. So
and what's good that keeps the purity of this test is that you kept everything besides the headline exactly the same.
Right. And just
So it looks like we might have lost Larry there. I'm not sure if it's just me that can't hear him, but hopefully he'll be back in a second.
Hey, sorry about that.
There you go.
Okay, we're back. So I just think, so I wanted to try out this emoji experiment not only on Google AdWords, Sean. Social ads is a big deal. If you're trying to do a promoted post on Facebook or on Twitter. And so here's this exact same promoted tweet. One of them is just without the emojis. Behold the most expensive keywords in Google AdWords, and it has an infographic. And the second one I have the fist and the hands and the money flying away and the money bag and the big money sign. Basically the same thing, but one with emojis and one without. Any thoughts?
Well, based on the last one, I'm gonna guess the tripling again.
Well. So the thing,
set the bar high.
so the thing you need to know about Twitter is that they've got this quality adjusted bid. So it's just like AdWords, where the higher the resonance, the relevancy, and the recency of the tweet that you're promoting, the more impressions and lower the cost for those ads. Okay, and so if you're promoting something with a 1% engagement rate, meaning 1% of the people are favoriting or liking it or retweeting retweeting that thing, then you're going to be paying like $3 for that click. But if you can move that engagement rate up to like 7, 21, 30, 68%, then the cost really comes down considerably to like half a penny. So just the rule of thumb, increasing and lowering engagement of the post that you're going to promote, that's going to have a 5% increase or decrease corresponding in the cost per engagement. So kind of a big deal. You need these emojis to change the engagement rate of your posts. And so here's the results. It's again a little bit grainy. It's a screenshot from my campaign manager, but the first one is the non-emoji, and the second one has the emojis. And so we're talking a difference between 8% versus 11% click-through rate. But look at the difference in cost per engagement. So the difference is it's like 18 cents for those clicks versus 14 cents for those clicks. So that's almost a 25-30% reduction. So that was very promising. And so, I think I would even go as far as to say, like, don't even bother promoting something on Twitter or Facebook if you don't include one or more emojis. It can't hurt you. It'll just make you stand out. It'll just make the campaigns run better. Any thoughts, Sean?
I think I'm going to try sending an emoji right now. I just did on my Twitter account, so there you go. That's my first emoji ever sent on Twitter.
You should check out my Twitter feed. It's Larry Kim. It's like 50% emojis, and sometimes I can just put together a reply using like a string of 5 emojis.
Yeah.
Telling a story of a burrito.
So I have to ask, was this an idea that your kids came up with?
I think
my kids enabled the emojis on my keyboard. Otherwise, I would have no clue how to do it on my phone. So there. I probably wouldn't be able to figure out how to send a lot of those emojis that you had up there before.
My kid is 18 months old, but he knows how to use YouTube, so that's kind of scary.
There you go.
All right, so there's the growth hacking happy dance. We're moving along. I have just one final crazy experiment that I wanted to talk to you about today. Of course, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Sean, and that is to use emotional triggers in your PPC ads. So like most of the time when you search on something like cloud computing solutions or something stupid like that, you'll find that the ads are very matter of the fact. Like it's like, oh, are you looking for cloud computing solutions? Great value and low, whatever. It's just a vanilla kind of, everyone has the same ads, but what if we were to inject a little bit of emotion into these ads, kind of like how in copywriting you have those clickbaity headlines that you want to click on, and so
you won't believe what happened next.
That's an emotion. That's curiosity.
Yeah.
So let's give this a try, and for this I want to give a shout out to my colleague Helen Edwards, Helen_Edwards7, who has been kind of pioneering all this emotional research on PPC ads. You should definitely follow her on Twitter. But basically, she came up with this really interesting framework. She says like you're supposed to, when you're targeting your ads, you have to find a persona, like in terms of like who your customer is and how do you want to relate to that target market. It's 4 personas that are the best. One is the comedian, one is the hero/villain, another one is the feel-good friend, and the other one is the bearer of bad news. Okay, so you take the standpoint of one of those personas, okay, and then you write these emotionally charged ad copy, using that leverage these 6 key emotions, and we tried out she tried out like hundreds of these different types of emotions, annoyance and fear and terror and apprehension, etc. So she figured out that those 4 or those 6 were the most effective. Okay, happy, sad, disgust, surprise, fear, anger. So I just want to give you one crazy example. Okay, so she has some company who does breast cancer screening, and wow, what a difference it makes. So the bottom one is being positive. It's like breast cancer screening with early detection, survival rate is 100%. Book an appointment today. That's kind of very matter of fact, it's it's what they do. And for this ad that which got 50% of the impressions, it generated 10 calls. All right. Now look what she did. She used the fear emotion. So it's like breast cancer screening. 15% of women live only 15% of women live 5 years with late detection get screened. Whoa. So that elicits like a much stronger urgency, like in terms of fear.
Wow,
And
yep.
so that generated almost 3 times as much calls, which is very, we're looking for 3 times increases, not 3% increases.
That's
So
awesome.
there's actually, I could talk for hours about the science of using emotional triggers in PPC advertising, but I'm telling you, this is like a secret that's like really, really underutilized in PPC ads today. I would say like less than 3% of advertisers have figured this out. The 97% of them are just doing the vanilla ads that are doing, get breast cancer screening today, kind of basic stuff. And so I would highly recommend following this woman, Helen Edwards, as well as this reading her research, bit.ly/emotional-ppc to give you. I mean, this is just like a kind of like a buffet menu here, but if you want to dive deep, there's like a lot of information there.
So, quick question for you, Larry. Did she have an interest in this topic before, and that's part of why you brought her on the team, or was it something that she just said, I'm going to do a deep dive on this and really learn everything about it, and it's happened while she's been on your team?
I just meet with my team members like all the time, and one of our brainstorming sessions for these things, we came up with some ideas and figured out, wow, this is really powerful, these emotions, and then we said, like, what if we try it across multiple accounts? And so and we saw similar results. And so I think, Sean, it kind of underscores what you were saying earlier about like the importance of having like a testing framework and the ability to share test results across a team, because that would be very, very valuable.
Because it's fun and engaging. And that's what I was going to say. I love that she's taken that on to take that deep dive, because there's a really powerful vein to mine there, and it sounds like she's doing it. So it's great that she's sharing it too.
Yeah, no one is doing this. I've heard of like using emotional triggers in landing page copy and I don't know, user interface design, but you can actually do this in PPC. The thing is that Google, because of people who are lazy and they use dynamic keyword insertion, they kind of make it like they don't really suggest that this is something that you should be taking advantage of. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
All right, guys, I guess I would just try to summarize all of my tips here as, trying to be a unicorn among a sea of donkeys and just being be remarkable, don't settle for average. Do these and other creative tests on your various PPC ads, whether they be display, social, or search campaigns. And there's a lot of leverage. Hopefully this was inspiring. Like, this is just like the tip of the iceberg, for test ideas, but as Sean was saying before, it's more about getting into mindset of testing, and there's so much leverage in terms of spreading. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just to put it in context, like my team and the untested ideas, our backlog of ideas that we're trying to decide to test each week, I think we have 530 ideas in that backlog of ideas. And the bigger that backlog is, as long as you have ICE scoring on it and you have a way of kind of processing through to figure out which are the ideas that you're most in each week, you can never have too many ideas. You just need to have a good way of processing and prioritizing which ones get tested first.
All right. So, Noel, do we have any questions from our listeners today? Guys, if you have a question, just type it in to the chat box. We've got a few minutes here.
Yeah. So we do have some great questions, lots of emoji questions, but I'll leave those for a minute. One of our One of our users wants to know, if they're working with a low budget, are there any recommendations you have for, testing with smaller ad budgets, or, how to make, the minimal dollars stretch a little bit further and get some testing out of it?
Oh my goodness! So this screams custom audience slash customer match. Remember I was talking about how to target rather than targeting everyone in the world, targeting only the people who like your prospects, like the people who've signed up for something but on your website but haven't yet turn into a customer. So if you could segment those emails, and I think you would find that it's not even possible to spend like thousands of dollars on that because it's such a targeted list. And so I would be targeting those very, very narrow, like being very, very picky. Like if you only have $50 or $100 to spend, then be picky. Anything to add?
Sometimes there's an advantage to having a small bucket or a small budget that basically you're pouring that budget into the most profitable bucket first, and if that overflows and it can't hold more, then you pour it into the next one and the next one, and that ultimately it means you can really concentrate it on where you get the best return on investment. But the other piece is that your testing should always be done in small batches. You often don't need to spend thousands of dollars to validate a test. You can sometimes do it on 20, 30, maybe upwards of $100, but after that you learn if it works or not, and then you're essentially just shifting more time and budget toward the things that work best.
Awesome, guys. Great answers. Our next user wants to know, and maybe this would be mostly geared towards Sean, how do you decide when you're going to kind of pull the plug on a test? Is there a fail success decision metric you use? Is there a time frame you use? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's definitely percentage certainty on a test if you're doing an A versus B test. So a lot of the tests that Larry showed were A/B tests, and that's where you can, he's testing one ad with the emoji, one ad without the emoji, and the system will tell you when there's statistical significance. A lot of times, you can decide yourself if you're shooting for 90% certainty or 99% certainty. To get to a 99% certainty, you're going to need a much bigger sample size. So most systems that you'd be running the testing now will tell you what the certainty level is, and then you can decide. I mean, that's the benefit of doing big, bold tests like Larry's talking about, is that you can generally get a read on if it works or not much more quickly. If you do something really small and incremental, it might take you a really long time to get a big enough sample size to call a winner on that.
So I'm a big tester. Like when I do something to test, need to be worth my while. Time is valuable, so I don't want to spend an hour on something unless I think there's an opportunity for a big win here. You know what I mean? And so in terms of how do I decide whether it's a winner or a loser, even if the thing is winning by like 3, 4, 5%. I mean, maybe this isn't for you, but I just view that as a fail. I'm kind of I realize there's different opinions in this matter, but if it's within the margin of error, plus or minus 5% or something, I kind of view that as noise. What I'm looking for is did it double or is it just 10% difference? You know what I mean? I'll call the test if I don't see a doubling, I'll just. If
you're not starting to see the signal that it's a game changer, it's just not worth to waste the sample size on something that's going to be incremental.
The universe of things that you can test is so big that I would be rather cutting the losses quickly on these little things to try to find the next game changer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, but I would just go the other direction too and say that if you string together enough singles and doubles that ultimately you can build a very steep growth curve off of a lot of incremental improvements. So I think you should always aim big, but the little ones do add up. If you're a Facebook, for example, and I'm assuming most of you aren't. Unfortunately, most of us aren't. That a 1% improvement on Facebook is going to be game changing and worth a lot of money. Where in most businesses it doesn't move the needle very much. So I think it's a little bit context specific as well.
I guess the challenge that what I'm saying here, Sean, is that with those little wins, what do you call them? A lot of times they're not actually true singles or doubles. A lot of times because of the lower volumes of SMBs, what they get, they could actually just be
They
statistical
could just be
variance.
temporary noise, and you just didn't run it long enough, and then they'll come back down to nothing.
Yeah, there's like this kind of premature optimizitis syndrome that I call it, like, because we ran the test, we want to believe that it did well,
Yep.
so that there's a validation bias, like that people want to say, like, oh, 3%, yeah, like 5%, like, when really it's, maybe that's like within the expected range of probabilistic outcomes, which is still not
That's
that.
a good point. That's a good point. Maybe we should take one more question.
Yeah, so we have a lot of questions about the emojis, so I figured I would talk for a second about this, and we do have a special offer for everybody on the call today. So for everybody that's interested in knowing about how to implement these emoji tests and kind of get them to bypass Google, or where to find these emojis online to embed them into your AdWords platform, there is a website. It's in this presentation. It's also going to be in the Canvas card that we put together as a follow-up for this session. So I'm going to actually launch the poll quickly and let you guys opt in as we're getting to the top of the hour. So Growth Hackers is piloting a new tool called Canvas. It allows you to test and share ideas, and it's been in private beta. It has a really high engagement rate with users currently, and if you are interested in signing up for VIP access to get some of these cool ideas that Larry and our team put together today, including this emoji concept that everybody's so thrilled to learn more about, you can definitely take advantage of that. We also will give you a 1-hour consultation of your AdWords account here at Wordstream. So if you guys want to talk to the experts and see how you could take advantage of some of these testable ideas and have them implemented, this team will strategy and an awesome of everything that's going on in your AdWords account and answer any questions that you have. So we're right at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, guys. So definitely want to give a shout out to both Sean and Larry. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to pull this together. I think it was a super successful event. And if you guys have any questions on the line, Larry Kim at Larry Kim on Twitter and at Sean Ellis on Twitter. Feel free to shoot any questions that we didn't get to answer on the webinar today to them on Twitter. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Noel.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Noel. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.